Welcome back, folks. This is episode 2 of Beyond the Bubbles, the podcast mainly about comics, but also about pop culture, movies, anime, manga, all that entails. I'm once again Terry Williams, and next to me is Mr. Ben Dunn. How are you today, sir?
Doing good. How are you doing, Terry?
I'm well. Been a little better, been a little sick under the weather, but feeling much better.
Good. Well, hopefully you'll recover.
Oh, yeah. Nothing gets me over sickness like talking comics.
Yes, that's the remedy for everything.
Yeah, it's always good. So this past weekend, got sick on a road trip, went out to California again, looked at a comic collection, actually picked it up. Really, really cool collection, lots of nice things. Then on the way back, drove back because I had a SUV full of comics. I actually stopped and gentleman had some books on Facebook Marketplace. Stopped and looked. I think he had 27 boxes of comics.
Oh, jeez.
They wouldn't all fit, and there was a bunch of stuff that I really didn't want, but I did get some really cool stuff out of it. I got and actually another Adam Legend of the Blue Marvel #1, which really high grade, which is a hard book to find.
Well, excellent. That's great.
Yeah.
Let you find a good haul.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah. I always enjoy the road trips and kind of stopping in the obscure places and just kind of seeing what's there. I always Google comics near me and just kind of, it takes me to thrift stores or a little out of the way comic shop or whatever. And it's always kind of cool. You never know.
Yeah, you never know what kind of buried treasure you'll find on these little road trips.
Exactly. And I love to hunt. To me, it's actually more about the hunt than it is about the actual buy. I just love looking.
Yeah, it's always been about the hunt. I mean, but that's great, Gary. I'm glad you got some good stuff.
Yeah. So when I was headed out that way, a lot of the talk in California was about San Diego Comic Con that's coming up. And you're attending, correct?
Yes, I'm going to be there. So we'll see how things work out. Last year was pretty crazy, but overall, I think everyone had a pretty good time.
Yeah. So just curious because that is my holy grail of Comic Cons. I haven't gotten to go yet. Planning to go next year. Nothing should stop me. How many years have you gone?
Well, let's see. I went to Comic Con on a scouting expedition, I think around 1989, 1990, when it was still being held at the old San Diego Convention Center in downtown. And it was it's changed a lot over these last 30 years or so.
Really?
It's I always kind of found it interesting they still call themselves a Comic Con when it's really not so much on the comics anymore, but just on the pop culture aspect in general. I think it really started to change around the 2000s when, Hollywood came a-knocking and they found it to be a great place to promote and, and to let people know about their offerings.
Right. So are there, since I've never been, I'm curious, are there many comic vendors there?
You've never been?
No, I haven't been. That's my granddaddy of them all that I want to go to, and I have to, but I haven't yet.
That's got to be your mecca of comicdom nerddom. You got to go. At least once in your lifetime, you got to go.
Right. The comic mecca.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You got to deal with the crowds, of course. When I was going in the mid-'90s, it was almost strictly just comics. When they moved to the big convention center, when they finally opened up, they took about maybe half the hall, and it was still mostly comics. And it wasn't until much, in the late 90s, early 2000s that we started seeing Hollywood creeping in, started taking over a lot of the venues and taking up more and more of the space. And now it's just a big, huge gathering of, pop culture and stuff like that. Not so much on comics anymore, at least for comic collectors.
Right. That's kind of what I've been noticing. I'm going to be going to I have a show this weekend in Oklahoma City. It's just a little small local flea market, really, but it's becoming more of a comic show. There's actually now, I think, 7 comic vendors there, so it's actually getting bigger. Free admission, so that's always fun. But at the end of the month, I'll be going to the Corpus Christi Comic Con, which is a pretty big one here in Texas. And from what I've noticed from the cons I've been to, it seems like it's becoming, there's vendors, comic vendors, but there's lots of other vendors. It's like clothing, pops, figures, that kind of thing, and tons of cosplayers, which I really enjoy. Seeing some of the designs and creations that these folks make is absolutely amazing to me. I don't know how they do it.
Well, I mean, it's understandable that maybe there just are not enough comic dealers to actually support a convention,
Hmm.
because the supply of comics is actually sort of drying up, at least for the back issues. I mean, now that things are starting to, I think, get back to normal as far as comic prices are concerned, maybe we'll see a more influx of material, especially with the economy as it is.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people will probably want to be getting rid of their collections, or are no longer interested in collecting. Because I mean, I know that a lot of people like to collect comics because I do it because it's fun. I love the history of it. I love actually reading them and, getting involved with the stories and characters. And then they're the people who collect just because of the monetary, aspect of it, which is
Right.
perfectly fine.
Sure.
But I think a lot of people are under the mistaken assumption that comics are like, stocks and bonds, hard assets and things like that. I mean, if you look at it from a strictly point of view of it as a really hard asset, I mean, only very few comics actually fall into that category.
Hmm.
I mean, you got your Action #1, your Detective 27, your Marvel Comics #1, Captain America, the Golden Age stuff, which is
Right.
truly the rare
Yeah.
material,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yep. And the only reason they're rare is because during World War II, you had all those paper drives, and
Hmm.
people didn't think of comics as something collectible. It was disposable entertainment.
Right.
That's why they're rare. I mean, if Action Comics had, I mean, they were selling 1 million copies an issue. If they didn't destroy all those copies of Action Comics, do you think it'd be worth as much now as?
No.
Yeah, it's,
Absolutely
it's the
not.
rarity of
Yeah.
it.
Supply and demand.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. That a lot of the shows, even a lot of the comic stores, the LCSs, their back issue selection is slim to none in a lot of cases. There are the stores that do have a big collection or a big selection of back issues, but most of them, their back issues consist of books from the last 3 years. It's like, most, man, I've been into a lot of new comic shops that absolutely have nothing but new books from the last 6 months or so, because that's how long they've been open. They have no golden age, silver age, even bronze or copper age. It's all the new stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I think the reason why I think actual collecting the collecting market, as far as people like us are concerned, is because we grew up reading comics and we love them and we love the stories and we love the characters. Unfortunately, now, with young people, they don't have that access that we had. I mean, we didn't have things to distract us like video games and the internet and,
True.
things like that. And we could occasionally just go to a movie every once in a while.
Hmm.
We didn't have streaming. We didn't have cable. I mean, comics were a very cheap and inexpensive way to entertain us, for a while. Now that comics have lost the ability to attract a new generation of people. So if you don't have that new generation to take up the mantle, then it's the people who collect them are just going to get older and older, and eventually the hobby may just die out.
Right. Yeah, it could. I really hope that isn't true, just because I love the medium so much.
Well, the thing about it is that the new generation are collecting something totally different.
Right.
They're growing up with manga. They're
Hmm.
growing up with video games. I mean, for God's sakes, people are collecting and slapping VHS tapes and,
And toys.
and toys and video. And it's crazy to me. I mean,
Right.
the whole idea behind all those items is so that you interact with them and play with them and things
Yep.
like that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna start down that road, because my views on graded books aren't what everybody else's are. I like mine raw. So, but with that, I know that everybody has, as you mentioned, the different, so much other out there for kids to do and young people to do, as far as video games, movies, that kind of stuff. For you and I, well, at least for me, one of the gold standards of movies when I was a kid was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Absolutely loved that movie. It kind of changed the I don't want to say I viewed Harrison Ford as a superhero, but I kind of did in that, that's what I want to do. I want to be that guy. I want to go on those adventures and that kind of thing. And he's reprised his role, and I believe he's 80, 83?
Something like that.
Yeah.
In his 80s.
And it's not doing so well.
Yeah, it's a shame. My wife and daughter went to go see it, and they came back. I didn't go see it because, I had really no interest in seeing it, and I figured I'd just wait till it comes to streaming and watch it. But they went to go see it because they're big fans of Indiana Jones, and they came back with a very tepid, opinion of it. They were even, and I would consider them more, quote unquote, what I consider normies. People who don't make it their mission to be obsessed with all the minutia of Indiana Jones and stuff. They just went on to go be entertained.
Right.
They just wanted to watch a movie because they liked Indiana Jones. And they came back with not exactly glowing reviews. They were complaining about some of the wonky CGI, and the biggest complaint they made was that the female lead, they didn't like her.
Really?
Yeah, they thought that she was very unlikable, and they didn't think that she was somebody that they could look up to.
It's unlikable as far as the character or the actress?
The character.
The character.
The character, the way it was written.
Really?
Because, they don't know anything about any of that stuff.
Right.
They just go in seeing the movie exactly for what it is. And they came out with that opinion.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that. I also haven't seen it. I actually haven't seen Indiana Jones since the...
Crystal Skull?
No.
Really? I actually went to
the
go
Temple
see
of
it.
Doom.
Really?
Actually.
Well, that's a long time.
Yeah, the Shia LaBeouf one, I was like, and and it didn't catch my... And it's
I
nothing,
went to go see it.
Really? And it's nothing against any of the actors or anything like that. It's just seeing the previews and trailers, it just didn't catch my eye. And I'm like, And and for whatever reason, it's never came back around, and I thought, oh, I'm going to watch it. So I'm out on it. It's not, but again, Indiana Jones has such a place in my heart from when I was younger that I still care about the character. I still want to know, but I just don't have the urge to go see it. And maybe that's what's wrong, is it doesn't, because like with me, I'm a guy that I thought, the first 3, I was like, okay, this is great. I love them. And after that, I was like, okay. Maybe it was because of the delay between the movies. I don't know, but it just didn't catch my eye. Or the marketing, I'm really not sure.
Well, I don't know if you're old enough to have been there when it first was released.
Of course.
So
yes,
you
Ben,
did
I'm
actually
that old. Yes.
So that when it first came out, we didn't know anything about it.
Right.
Okay, we only went in because it was by George Lucas, and I love Star Wars, and it had Harrison Ford in it. I had no idea what I was to expect in this movie, and when it was over, it came out and said, well, this was an incredible, entertaining movie.
Exactly.
So different, and I think the thing about it is that he's a man of his time, and when you take him out of that, he doesn't seem to work. Okay, when you put him in the 50s, when we're in the 60s, it's not his wheelhouse, basically.
Yeah.
And so when they've concluded it, Temple of Doom, that's a one-off. I think it is interesting that they made it a prequel, which was I thought was kind of interesting. And then they concluded with Last Crusade, which was a perfect ending for a trilogy of films, and they could have just let it go at that.
Yeah, just let it let it die a peaceful death.
They had the TV series where we see an old Indiana Jones. So if you go by that canon, there was no way he was going to die in this movie.
I think it's one of those. I think that's a really good point, that it should have. Some movies are just some series or movies or franchises, I guess is what I'm trying to say, are just made for 3. And it should be done. Everything can't be a Star Wars or Fast and the Furious or anything that goes so long. It's just like, okay, that would have been a good wrapping up point. I agree.
Yes, I agree with that. Had it just ended on Last Crusade, that it would have just been a perfect trilogy of films. And but the decision to go do a 4th one with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I mean, I can understand why George did it. He wanted to do something with aliens.
Yeah.
And I think Steven's big mistake was that he let George convince him to do the movie.
Maybe so. So, do you think that would have been a series if they would have, say, finished it at after 3, and then maybe rebooted with a new character, and did it that way? Do you? I guess what I'm trying to say is do you think it's failing because it's Harrison Ford still is the lead, and people just can't get into that, or that it's just the franchise in general?
Well, I mean, honestly, if they had taken just a little bit of thought about the story and how they could have rebooted it, there's a lot of ways they could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the myth of the Fountain of Youth.
Right.
If he had Indiana Jones going after that, he could have fallen into the Fountain of Youth and come out as a different character, and that could have taken on the role. I mean, if we can accept aliens from outer space and time travel, we can certainly
I can see
accept a Fountain of Youth type story, or just take the James Bond approach. Just recast him.
Yep, that's kind of what I was thinking. I think for me, it's just I just can't see Harrison Ford is that character anymore. Just kind of like I'm glad how they do Bond, because to me, Sean Connery is my Bond. He's the best Bond to me. But after a time, it wouldn't have worked anymore if they would have kept him in that role. They had to change and go to someone else.
Well, I mean, they tried him with Lazenby, and I actually thought he made a pretty good James Bond. I mean, I think the problem was that he was not a professional actor.
Yeah,
and you could tell.
Yeah,
and the thing about it was when Roger Moore took over, he decided to play his own version of James Bond. They could have done that with Indiana Jones. They could have done that with kept him in the 30s. Recast him with somebody else, and that guy could have played a different version of Indiana Jones.
I agree 100%.
I mean, he could have taken on the mantle of somebody totally different.
Yep. So on that, I have a question that is a debate between me and a lot of my friends. Do you think that Hollywood is running out of ideas as far as, it seems like we're just rebooting a lot of franchises over again, or a one-off movie. Man, there's always a remake or something like that. There's not too many original ideas. And I understand now there's been so much media out there, how many original ideas are left, I guess. But do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing in the long term?
I don't think there's any shortage of good ideas. What we have is a shortage of people willing to take chances on different ideas. The thing about it is that it's expensive to do a movie, and you have to try to hedge your bets in any way you can to maintain an advantage. I mean, Hollywood's always been one to follow trends. I mean, if you think about it, even as far back as when it first appeared, they were quick to jump on the bandwagon when jazz was hot. Everything in movies was jazz. When buddy comedies were hot, that's what people were doing. When during the 70s, when message movies were a big thing, that's what they kept doing. And in the 80s, I mean, the 80s, I think, was probably one of the best decades where people were just doing different things.
I agree 100%. I'm also old, but what do I know?
I mean, I think there's no shortage of good ideas. It's just a matter of trying to find those good ideas and take a chance on them.
Yep. Yeah. Like I kind of have that idea now that Ben Dunn, comic creator / movie mogul, that idea for Indiana Jones was really good. I was like, okay, that could work.
I don't know if I could actually take that. I mean, when we were trying to shot Warrior Nun, the property back in the 90s, it was a slog.
Really?
The people just didn't understand the concept, and we, even though we spent all this money on a pilot, trying to sell it as a series, and we shopped it around to 5 or 6 different production companies, nobody understood.
Really?
And it wasn't until just 4 or 5 years ago when Simon Very finally, took the idea and did something different with it to make it sellable.
So do you think that was a issue of fear or an issue of closed-mindedness?
I don't know. I think it was just an issue of not understanding the source material.
Okay.
I think some Hollywood is of the mindset that you're only as good as your last project.
Mm-hmm.
And if your project is not, it doesn't matter whether you've had a string of big successes. All it takes is one failure for people to
Yeah.
to
True.
treat you like a pariah.
True.
So and it's difficult to try to convince them of something new because they don't have they don't understand the concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why you have the people who are the executives in charge, who are the money people and who control everything, and then you have the creatives, and they're always at loggerheads with each other. It's very rare when you have a synergy between corporate and the creators.
Right. Yeah.
It's very rare when that happens.
Interesting. It's a lot of I think that's kind of where Hollywood, I think, is missing the boat a little bit in that there's not that many studios. I would think there would be more studios doing comic adaptations because the comic, man, as you and I know, there's so many stories, so many properties, so many franchises out there that could be really good.
Oh yeah,
series or movies.
There's literally hundreds of options of comic book series.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest challenge is to find financing. And that's the biggest problem. It's always been about a money issue when it comes to creating anything.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about nowadays is that the ability to create your own material is much more. It's much more open now. I mean, back then you couldn't get a hold of a high-end camera. Back in the 70s, you had to go through the system because that was the only way to get all the equipment needed to make a movie. But now you can shoot a movie on your phone. You can do editing on your laptop. You can shoot just about anything and make a movie. And special effects, you can do special effects comparable to Hollywood now on your home computer.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen material from amateur filmmakers who do material that rivals a lot of the stuff that Hollywood is producing. And that, to me, is where the big game changer will be.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we're able to be exposed to more stuff internationally than we have before because we're able to see movies from other countries like, India and China and Japan, South Korea and Africa and Europe. I mean, those used to be very rare.
Right.
But now it's, you can log on and to YouTube or some other social media site and be able to watch movies from other countries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've noticed that with Netflix. There's a huge influx of foreign movies that are really, really, really well done. Like one that comes to mind for me is The Raid and The Raid 2. I absolutely love those two movies for action. And the stories are really well done. The editing seems to be really good. The everything about it is well done. So it's like, yeah, almost,
well, it's cheap.
yeah. But even though it's cheap, it's still really good.
Yeah,
and by cheap you mean the actors?
Well, the cheap by the material is already done.
Right.
Okay. I mean, basically what they're doing is somebody's already paid for something like a movie or a series, and they're just buying it secondhand.
Right.
Because it hasn't been shown here in the United States, and it costs very little to dub it, and to put it out. So and to them, it's all about content.
Right.
Content. You got to have new content almost every week in order to maintain your subscriber base, because as it's being shown with, streaming services like Max and Hulu and Disney Plus and the others, is that if you don't have a constant stream of new content, subscribers tend to get bored with what you have.
Right.
And they move on to something else, or they just cancel. It says, why am I paying for this? I'm not getting anything new.
True.
And that's why Netflix has survived, because they're able to just maintain a constant flow of new content. I mean, I can go almost every day and there's something new.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree 100%. We kind of strayed away from the Indiana Jones, but I think that was a really good topic to address. I like delving into that because I don't know that much about it. I just know that I like to watch. things. But the back part of it is kind of, I don't know. And luckily, you know a little bit about that with your experience with Warrior Nun. So it's nice to hear that aspect of it.
Well, yeah. I'm not a big Hollywood type or mogul. I like just doing what I'm doing, creating comics and stuff like that. And I understand that it can be a cutthroat business for sure. You have to have you got to have fortitude to really make it into that environment.
Yep.
I mean, and it's a risk. I mean, I'm sure when they were making Indiana Jones 5, nobody thought it was going to, do as poorly as it's been doing.
Sure.
I'm sure they had very high expectations. I'm sure they had very lofty goals on the performance of it because it's Indiana Jones. I mean, why
Harrison
wouldn't they?
Ford. It's Harrison
Right,
Ford.
exactly. I mean, why? There's no reason why it would ever do as poorly as it has been doing.
Right. And I think for a lot of us guys our age, we do have those sentimental ties to certain actors or characters or whatever. And some of us, and I think Hollywood gets into that a little bit as well. And they just think that, oh, it's Harrison Ford. We can put him in a movie and all these other people are going to come and see it. And I don't think that's the case anymore if the product isn't good. Even though he's a great actor he was good in Star Wars even. But now it's like you can't just throw someone in that's a known name and think the movie's going to sell because of that.
Right. Well, I mean, I can't really judge the movie since I haven't actually seen it.
Right.
But my understanding, based on what talking to my daughter and my wife saying, is that it looked like there was like too many cooks, in the soup. It just seemed to go from one tone to another, and it just didn't. It seemed like there were 3 different movies, in that film. So it could be there was no consistency as far. I mean, when you talk about time travel and space aliens and Indiana Jones, it sort of starts to lose its believability.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I mean, not like the arc was anything believable, but at least it was grounded in the world he was in.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I agree 100%. So it looks like we are going to both have some upcoming events that are going to be fun. Would like to come back and maybe discuss those after we attend our events.
Sure.
Comic-Con especially. I want to hear all about it. I will with our next episode will air just before I'm going to Corpus Christi, but after that I'll recap that. Plan on maybe taking some videos, stuff like that out of there just to kind of show people what they're missing. If you haven't been to a Comic-Con, I think it's something that if you're a nerd like me, you definitely need to go to just for the experience. There's a lot of local ones that are good. There's the big ones. Like I said, I still haven't been to San Diego Comic-Con, which is it for me. So next year I plan on being there. But again, I think it's definitely some stuff out there for everybody at those events, between the comics, the anime, the cosplay. I mean, if I only went like with Man Expo, I went and I could have just went to see the cosplay stuff because those costumes were so amazing. So, it's always fun. And the kids, there was so much interactive stuff for kids that I think it's a great weekend or a great day. Even if you can't get a weekend pass, if you just have a day to take your kids, I think it's something that would be fun for them to go and experience something like that, especially if you're trying to get them into reading or something like that. Like with me, I started doing reading comics and my mom allowed me to read comics because, in her words, at least you're reading something.
Yeah.
So it's still a great medium, and I want to see kids involved. And if they grow from that into being a videographer or whatever because of that field, wonderful.
Well, yeah, I mean, San Diego Comic-Con, I mean, if you really want the truth, it's really no different from any other comic book convention. It's just the
Don't
size.
say that.
No, it's true. It's just the size, and what made it stand out was what really made it stand out was the exclusives. A lot of people went there just to get the exclusives, because a lot of companies set up there to, hand out certain things to promote certain lines. And another thing was the celebrities. A lot of people, especially when Hollywood started coming in, I mean, you got a chance to actually see big name celebrities up, in real life.
Sure, yeah.
And ask them questions and things like that. And also the caliber of dealers that were there.
Mhm.
I mean, you could pretty much just about find anything you wanted at San Diego
Right.
Comic Con.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to. I mean, I've been searching for certain books, and almost invariably I would find it at Comic Con.
Yep. Cool. So now I know it's Ben Dunn, comic creator, movie mogul, and crusher of dreams.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far.
I just want to go to Comic Con.
I'm just
It's not all
I'm just
that.
a humble comic creator. That's all I am.
Folks, we certainly appreciate you guys joining us again on our second episode of Beyond the Bubbles. I guess we look forward to seeing you back again. Again, please go out there, find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We should be up on Spotify and iTunes here shortly, probably in about a week or so. Go hit like, subscribe, give us feedback, let us know what you think. And if you want your dreams crushed, this is the guy to do it.
I'm not a crusher of dreams.
Thanks, folks. We'll see y'all later.
All right, take care, everyone.